What if the real cause of insomnia isn't stress, but it's actually what's happening in your gut?
90% of our serotonin levels, and we produce our melatonin from serotonin. Temperature needs to be dropped by Celsius or so in order for us to go into deep sleep.
What about alcohol?
Alcohol will bring our temperature up and it will fragment our sleep. Light is really important. It's our best cue for our internal clock.
Dr. Elisa Sacal
is redefining the science of rest, blending sleep neuroscience, functional medicine,
and lifestyle optimization to help people heal from the inside out.
As co-founder of the Family Sleep Institute in Latin America and author of Desde la Raíz,
she brings her expertise as a physician, cancer survivor, and mother of 3 to teach us how transforming sleep can transform life itself.
When we sleep, our brain shrinks. At night, the neurons tend to be close together, so cerebrospinal fluid just go through neurons and flushes out metabolic waste, that is normal waste, beta amyloid, tau protein. So without enough sleep, that will accumulate and increase our chances of having.
If someone's having trouble sleeping and they're like, okay, listen, I'm doing all the sleep hygiene, it's still not working, what other things should they investigate?
I think besides hormone, they need to check.
Welcome to the Dr. Brighten Show, where we burn the BS in women's health to the ground. I'm your host, Dr. Jolene Brighten, and if you've ever been dismissed, told your symptoms are normal or just in your head, or been told just to deal with it, this show is for you. And if while listening to this, you decide you like this kind of content, I invite you to head over to drbrighten.com, where you'll find free guides, twice weekly podcast releases, and a ton of resources to support you on your journey. Let's dive in. What if the real cause of insomnia isn't stress, but it's actually what's happening in your gut?
That's a great question, because actually the gut produces over 90% of our serotonin levels, and we produce our melatonin from serotonin. So it's really important to have good balance, gut balance, and to have our microbiome stable so we can have good sleep quality as well as good mood.
So you just said serotonin is how we make melatonin. And for some people, it's going to be the very first time they've ever heard that. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. So serotonin is actually our precursor of melatonin. And it actually builds up with tryptophan, which is an amino acid that we need to ingest to take with diet, with food. We can include in dinner, for example, turkey, nuts, seeds to help us produce this. And it's very important also to have gut balance and to expose ourselves to light at morning, because that's an important cue for us to produce serotonin and actually convert it to melatonin at night. So if we don't expose ourselves to enough light in the morning, outside light actually, it will be very difficult for us to produce enough melatonin, which is a darkness hormone.
Yeah. You just said turkey, and everybody in the United States knows tryptophan, turkey, go to sleep. But I bet that it wasn't until this moment that a lot of people realized it's that tryptophan to serotonin to melatonin pathway that, gets called the reason why we all go into food comas at Thanksgiving. But as we know, that has a lot to do with overeating and a lot of carbohydrates going on as well.
Yeah. Also, glucose regulation is very, very important for sleep. And when we don't have good balance on dinner, we don't introduce complex carbohydrates, protein, good fats. And also when we tend to eat too late and right before sleeping, that will increase our body temperature, and that will affect our sleep quality.
I want to talk more about body temperature, but I want to go back to something that you said just a few minutes ago, which was getting light exposure is important for the cue at night for melatonin production. So most people think we need sunlight for the circadian rhythm to spike cortisol, but it goes a layer deeper to how it actually affects melatonin. Can you talk more about that?
That's right. We need to expose our retina to our ganglion cells, retinal ganglion cells, which are intrinsic photosensitive to light, because that's the main cue that is going to signal our SEN to tell our pineal gland to produce melatonin and then release it at evening, 2 or 3 hours before bedtime. So it's really important few people know that our melatonin, our good sleep quality, starts with exposing ourselves to enough daylight.
So I want to talk about body temperature, and I feel like it goes really well with the conversation of perimenopause and menopause as well. Why is it that some women in perimenopause are getting less sleep than new moms?
Because actually in perimenopause, our hormone starts to fluctuate. So around 40, 45 years, we start with early perimenopause. And estrogen is an important thermoregulator. So when we start increasing and decreasing our hormones, estrogen is gonna stop regulating our temperature, and also progesterone. Especially at the start of perimenopause, first phase, we will decrease our progesterone levels, which naturally is our anxiolytic hormone, and it helps us go to sleep. So women might find difficult to stay asleep and maintain their sleep or wake up early. So that and temperature and night sweats, everything like that, it's going to affect their sleep quality.
So you said anxiolytic, and that is anti-anxiety hormone for people listening. So it's why you don't have racing thoughts when you fall asleep. You feel more sedated, sleepy, calm. So that progesterone to allopregnanolone pathway is so powerful. But what should people know? So women who are in late stage perimenopause, they're like, I know about hot flashes. I know about the night sweats. I know how that disrupts my sleep. But it's not even that extreme of like you have to have a hot flash to have poor quality sleep. Your body temperature, as you just said, eating too late at night and that being too close to bedtime, that can affect your body temperature. So what is the role of body temperature in getting good sleep? And then what can we do environmentally to hack that?
That's a very good question, because temperature needs to be dropped by degree Celsius or so in order for us to go into deep sleep. And there's a few things that might prevent that. Eating too late, for sure. Also, exercise. Exercise is great for sleeping, and it will improve our time. The latency, sleep latency, that's the time that it will take you to fall asleep once you're in bed, and then it will increase efficiency. But the only thing is we need to stop doing exercise before going to bed, at least 3 to 4 hours, or at least not intense workout.
Great. That was what I was going to ask you, is like, does it matter on the type of exercise? Is it all exercise?
Yeah, as long as you're doing yoga, stretching, and you don't sweat a lot, it will be fine.
Yeah, I do all my mobility exercises before bed, usually. When the kids and everybody's in the bedroom and we're doing bedtime routine, I'm like, I'm going to do some hip mobility now.
And that might help you induce a more parasympathetic system, right? Parasympathetic mode, and it will increase your relaxation mode. And it's very important for us to feel relaxed and safe to go into deep sleep.
And what about alcohol?
Alcohol also will bring our temperature up. It's also a diuretic, and it will fragment our sleep, especially our REM sleep phase. At the beginning, you might feel easier to fall asleep because it's a sedative, and it will knock your frontal cortex. But after a while, in the second part of the night, it might fragment it, and it will affect your REM sleep. So chronically, it will affect, and it's not a good idea.
Yeah. And a lot of women we see, especially in perimenopause, they start chasing alcohol, nightcaps. That's a thing that like people say in parts of the world. And it's because it can work with GABA, but it's so temporary. So let's talk about the fragmented sleep. So when you say fragmented sleep, what does that mean for people who haven't heard that?
Okay, so while we sleep, we're not in a passive state. It's actually a complex active state, and we have it in cycles. Each cycle is between 90 to 110 minutes length, and we will have 4 to 6 cycles a night. So between each cycle, we might have a small pause just to check everything out. We are animals, and we need to check our environment and everything, that we make sure it's safe. So between those cycles, you might move a little bit. How do you say? cover yourself if you're
Oh, yeah,
cold.
pull the covers up.
Pull the covers up and check everything's okay. And to check that everything as you left it when you lose consciousness. So you might have those pauses, and you might have actually 15 to 20 minutes between all those cycles. As long as it doesn't take more than 20 minutes, it's okay to wake up and fall asleep. Because a lot of people get anxious about waking up, and it is actually part of sleeping, as long as it's continued one cycle after the other one, and you don't remember it that much, and you don't struggle that much to fall asleep again, it's going to be okay. But that continuously is going to bring you sleep quality, which is as much as important is as important as sleep quantity.
So what does it look like then when someone drinks alcohol? So that's the normal, like you're going to wake up, you're going to adjust the covers. Maybe you go to the bathroom, maybe, you kick one leg out, all the things we do when we sleep. But when someone drinks alcohol, how does that look different? Is it more frequency in waking up? Is it a more difficult time going back to sleep? Is it all of the above?
Mainly all of the above. At the beginning of the night, your cycles, you're going to cap REM sleep from your cycles. And at the second part of night, you're going to have like a rebound on that REM sleep, which is a lighter type of sleep. So the sleep architecture overall is going to get messed up.
Yeah. And the other thing about alcohol I found really interesting, I was reading recently that your heart rate variability can be messed up for 2 days after having a drink, which is really lame because it's even worse once you're in your 40s and above. And your resting heart rate goes up at night as well. Can you talk about why those two variables are so impactful in terms of us actually waking up feeling rested and being resilient to stress?
Yes, well, heart rate variability, which is like the difference between heartbeats, it actually reflects our possibility to activate parasympathetic mode. So it's our resiliency, heart resiliency. So when you drink alcohol, you trigger cortisol, you trigger alert mode in a way, or at least metabolically speaking. And then heart rate variability will reflect that, and it's going to decrease. Also, heart rate is going to go up, and temperature is going to go up as well. And what were you talking about? Heart rate, and what was the question?
So your heart rate staying elevated at night, and then the heart rate variability it drops. So I guess I should clarify that for people. So heart rate should go down at night, and heart rate variability, you want to be up. Like you just want that up. Like how high can you get it? When you drink alcohol, your heart rate actually goes up at night. So instead of being like 60, you might be like 68. And then your heart rate variability, maybe instead of being 50, it's dropping down to 30 to 20.
Because in the cardiovascular system, it's really important for us to dip a little bit our blood pressure at night, at least 10 to 20%. If you have alcohol or a nightcap, that might stay up, and then cardiovascular system won't relax. And chronically, it will predispose you to have high blood pressure or hypertension.
And as you were talking about this, you said, the heart rate variability, that's a measure of our parasympathetic activity. So heart rate going down, heart rate variability going up. You saying that's parasympathetic activity, that means that we are de-stressing. And as you said, you drink alcohol, cortisol goes up, and then it stresses your cardiovascular system. And then there's also the raise in body temperature. So I think you've made a really good case of why like nightcaps are lies. They don't actually
It's not a good idea. Yeah, we should stop alcohol. I mean, there's no good amount of alcohol and a safe amount of alcohol, but we should stop drinking at least 2 hours before bedtime.
So I want to go back to the gut component, because early on in this conversation, you said that we produce the serotonin in our gut. Is that crossing the blood-brain barrier? Is the serotonin in our gut actually being utilized for sleep in the brain?
Some say it's not crossing, as well as GABA, for example, it's not crossing the blood-brain barrier, but we have neuropods cells. How do you say?
Are you talking about like vagus nerve?
Yeah, the neuropods. Neuropodos.
Neuropodos.
It's a new term that's
maybe I don't know this term.
The vagus nerve send like a signal, like a food on the stomach, and it senses how the ambient is. So it will say to the brain, how is everything? It's not direct. It's not directly that it crosses. That's why if you, for example, take GABA, it might not cross the blood-brain barrier, but the vagus nerve through his food that it sends, it's called neuropoda in Spanish. I'm not sure how to say it in English.
Which makes sense. So for people listening, that when you say pod in medicine, we're talking about a nerve foot that's down there and seated.
That's what I meant. So the vagus nerve will send a pod to the digestive system, and it's going to tell the gossip to the brain, and it's going to say how is environmentally speaking in neurotransmitters, and it's a signal directly to the brain, so it knows how to react. So it's really important for us to have enough serotonin that way.
Yeah. It's very interesting because your gut and the microbiome, it is producing so many neurotransmitters. And forever we thought like there's, medicines like your gut is separate from your brain. And now we understand whatever the gut environment is absolutely influences the brain environment.
Sure. Also inflammation. If you have gut dysbiosis, it's going to produce inflammation. You're going to have cytokines over there, and that will going to mess up your hormones. It's going to mess up your metabolic health, and that as well is going to affect your sleep for sure.
Can you say more about how inflammation is affecting people's sleep? Because we know the gut is one of the most hidden areas for inflammation, right? It's like where the immune system is hanging out. But most people think you have to have gut symptoms, in order to have dysbiosis or to have problems. So I think I'm asking two questions here. So firstly, how is inflammation in the gut impacting the brain and impacting sleep?
Right. Well, inflammation is going to activate HPA axis. So we're going to have cortisol overproduction, and it's going to alter our glucose levels as well. So it's going to activate sympathetic tone. So that is opposite of what we need in order to fall asleep and to have good quality sleep. So HPA axis is one of them. And then inflammation also talking about the glucose levels, we're going to have insulin resistance. We might have hypoglycemia, reactive hypoglycemia at the beginning that might wake us up, especially those awakenings where we feel like night sweats or we feel hungry, because maybe a lot of people doesn't know that, but it's not normal to wake up and feel hungry or feel change on temperature. So insulin resistance as well, it will have an effect on sleep.
And then, so my second question that I was muddling together into one is, a lot of people think you must have gut symptoms in order for you to have gut dysbiosis or any kind of dysfunction. But we know the gut can be a hidden place of inflammation. So can you explain, to people listening, how gut symptoms might show up and why it is that the gut can be that hidden source of inflammation?
Sure. Gut symptoms might look like constipation, diarrhea, distension. Not everything that it's affecting the gut will show up in the gut. Sometimes you might see dermatitis, like a skin rash or something like that. It might affect your attention. You might feel fogginess, or you might find skin rashes. Might feel irritable. Also, mood changes, mood swings. You might find that tongue changes.
Yeah. And then in terms of gut symptoms, let's talk about what is and isn't normal. Because I think people live with some things that they think are this is totally normal. And yet when you explain to them, no, you shouldn't be so bloated that you have to have elastic pants on all the time, or, that's a little more extreme. But I think there's other things people live with day to day they don't realize are not normal.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like a lot of my patients have normalized digestive issues, skin problems, hair falling, and appetite, also cravings. They feel like they need sugar every time. So they might normalize it. They just don't put attention because they have lived with it for so many years that they've normalized it.
Yeah. And I think this is also important because, everyone can have sleep issues, but I think we see a lot of sleep issues once women get into perimenopause becoming problematic. And we know with the decline of estrogen that you talked about with having hot flashes, that can also affect gut microbial diversity. And so we can see a drop in diversity, and we see women in their 50s with new onset IBS, but really what it is, it's a change of hormones and affecting their gut. So I'm curious from you, just hearing how often in your clinical practice, when people are having sleep issues, are you seeing that there's this co-occurring gut issue going on as well?
I might say 80% of the time, gut issues show up at the same time of sleep struggle, and also stress problems. Like that's like the three: digestive problems, stress symptoms,
Yeah.
and sleep problems.
Yeah.
Sleep and stress are super related because when we have HPA axis activation, we might feel anxious, we will have racing thoughts, and actually a wind down routine is very important. I feel like today we're losing our transitional stages. Like we used to go to work and then shut the laptop down or shut the computer down, and then commute time, it will take like 20-30 minutes, but a lot of people is doing home office, and they don't have these transitional stages anymore. So to change from sympathetic mode to parasympathetic, it's being too hard for them. So a wind down routine might be very helpful, and we need to be conscious about that and improve on timings and do it in the same order every time.
Yeah. I want to talk about wind down routines, but I really want to underscore what you said. Basically, we lost guardrails. Definitely during the pandemic, this happened where people, they had a routine of like, I leave the house, then I'm doing work. And then when I get home, I stop work. And now, because so many people are working from home, we kind of see that bleed. I feel like schools very much indoctrinate this bad behavior in us with giving homework. I'm like, and it's something that like my son's school, I do have to say, like, I really appreciate them because they're like no more than 30 minutes at home. And I'm like, I think that's reasonable. But we see that is something that in the US culture, a lot of people have criticized of like, it is to break down your boundaries and your sense of work versus home time. So this started when we were children. So anyone listening right now who's like, oh my God, like how do I break free from that? What is your advice to have that transition and to switch into that parasympathetic?
Yeah, I think we should activate our senses. We need to use our senses in order to activate that parasympathetic mode. So let's, for example, say we're going to do this routine for 20 to 30 minutes in which we're going to be conscious about light. We're gonna dim light. Light is really important. It's our best cue for our internal clock, our circadian
Is this
rhythm.
before bed? Like 20, 30 minutes before bed?
20 to 30 minutes before bed. We're gonna dim lights. If we're gonna use light, it's gonna be also amber lights or red light, which is gonna be easier for our brain to increase our melatonin level. Because actually blue light will block it. And we know from research that it will block our melatonin by 50%. It will cut it by 50%. And it will stay like this for at least 100 minutes. So for an hour and a half, we're not going to have good melatonin levels. And that will translate into bad sleep quality for at least an hour, the first hour. So even if you fall asleep, it will be an hour from 8, probably, that you're not having you're gonna have like not a great quality. So overall, that means a lot. Also, we need to have a good environment, conducive to sleep. It's a good idea to do the same things in the same order for our brain to have predictability and help relax and activate our sleep mode. Also, maybe have some stretches or read in a dim light, because we have also the comparison on paper reading, and a tablet. Yeah, and we know tablet might reduce melatonin levels as well. So every time everybody asks me, is it okay if I use my Kindle paper or so? As long as it's not backlit, it's going to be fine. But yeah, we should introduce activities that are conducted to sleep and repeat the same order every day as much as we can, so our brain can trigger sleep mode.
Yeah, I use a Kindle to read at night, and you can put it in a dark mode, so it's all black on the screen. But I have to say, I have tried to read with paper books, and I fall asleep while I read, and I will drop them on my face, and
That's the idea.
You want to talk about getting into sympathetic overdrive when you smack yourself in the face with the book.
Well.
And I find with the Kindle, I just kind of drifted off to the side. But so I love the routine around bedtime. I think we need to back up though, because I think especially for parents listening, right? You get home from work, kids get home from school, and it feels like this very amped up time. And it's you have kids, so you know how it is. It's dinner, bath, oh my God, get them to bed so that I can get some time and then I can go to bed. What are ways that when we come home, we can kind of set up the environment to be more parasympathetic driven and to be conscious around that of how because I do have wearables. I have an Aura ring.
Yeah.
The most stressful time of my day is the end of the day. And my Aura, and it was the most gratifying thing ever. I was like, thank you, Aura, for letting me know that what I felt was very true. Yeah. And so it actually showed me your stress is spiking from 5 to 8 p.m. That's the worst for you. And I'm yes, there are so many moving parts. And so I've had to be really conscious about that. And I imagine we have listeners right now who are yes, this is exactly when the cortisol problem starts for me in the day.
Right, because we tend to rush everything into the last part of our day, especially if we are moms. So environment is going to help, as well as a hot bath, a warm bath. We know taking an hour or 2 hours before bed is going to help our body, our core body drop later when we fall asleep. And it will actually decrease sleep latency. It will increase sleep efficiency and sleep duration, both for us and for our kids. That could be a good tool. And also to have in mind to have dinner, not the last part of our day, but at least for kids, an hour before going to sleep. And maybe some meditation, journaling, or breathing techniques can activate the sympathetic mode we need. I love the 4-7-8 breathing technique, which is inhaling for 4, hold it for 7, and then exhale for 8. And if you do 4-7 cycles, at least 3 minutes before sleeping, it will be a good idea, as well as if you wake up at night.
And I will say, the wearables now, or even your phone, you can set prompts. So my watch, I've set it so that it knows when I wake up, and it's like this lovely little bell, and it's you need to stop and you need to take some time to meditate. And I'm yes, I do. Thank you very much. But I think, as a mom, I definitely need those cues, but also because we can jumpstart the day thinking I've got it, I have all this to do. And then at the end of the night, I think we sometimes get in bed and we just think okay, I'm in bed, I should just fall asleep. But we need exactly what you're saying, some of that parasympathetic system priming.
I know, yeah. I've heard Matthew Walker, this sleep expert, said that you won't get to table and wait there until you're hungry. You won't go to bed until you're sleepy. So we need to prepare ourselves to activate those hormones switch that we need to prepare for sleep.
And you were talking about how your melatonin rises at a certain time, but we know that there's different chronotypes. We know that certain neurodivergent people have delayed sleep phase syndrome, where their melatonin doesn't get up until 1 a.m. in the morning. So I'd like to talk a little bit about chronotypes, because I think some people are going to hear the sleep stuff that we're just talking about, and they're going to be sure, that sounds great, but that doesn't fit who I am. So Can you first start by explaining what a chronotype is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love it, because chronotypes are like our sleep personality. we have different blood types, different eye colors, and we have different chronotypes, which is the sleep propensity. It's like our internal clock timing, our preference to wake up at some times and go to sleep at a different time. And traditionally, we have morning people that are the ones that you go to the gym and they're talking to everyone and they are really energized at mornings. And then we have, by the way, 30% of the people are morning larks. And then we have intermediate chronotype, which is 40% of the people comes here, and they just go by the sun. And then we have night owls, which have more energy at nights. They tend to be more creative at nights as well. And they probably will be fine sleeping around 11 or 12 at night. Mm-hmm. And this chronotype is really important for us to make our sleep schedule and to take advantage of that, to be energized in the morning, to set meetings by the time we know we're going to be better and more alert. It's determined genetically, specifically PER3 gene has that information, for example, and then hormone and age, because you said neurodivergent people might have delayed sleep phase, and also teens. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty common for teens to go to sleep at 12, 1, or at least have that sleep drive at that hour, and then wake up at 9 or 10. So they're not lazy. They just have a sleep delay phase. On the contrary, for kids, for example, that they have advanced delay phase, and they tend to go to sleep at 6, 7, 8, and they tend to wake up at 7. Mm-hmm. That's why I see a lot of children and moms with children that tell me, couldn't I just take him to sleep at 10 and he'll wake up at 10? If they need to sleep 12 hours, let's just move that. And no, because their circadian clock, their chronotype makes them sleep early and wake up early. Mm-hmm. So we need to align our circadian clock, our chronotype, to our sleep schedule in order to have our best energy. Real weak.
Yeah, we're having this conversation right now. Last night, my son just said to me, he's like, all my friends at school think it's weird I go to bed at 8 because they all don't go to sleep until 10. And I was
How
like,
old is he?
He's going to be 13 soon.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's like, they all think it's weird. And his kids in his class are like 11, 12. And I'm like, yeah, well, I bet not all of their parents are doctors who actually understand hormones and how significant sleep is on the brain. And I always tell him, like, if you eat food and you're full of poop, would you skip going to the bathroom and just be full of it? And he's like, no. I'm like, then why would you do that to your brain?
Right.
Which we'll talk about today, guys. Why I say weird things to my kids. It will make sense to
and
you.
Also, we've seen on research that schools that tend to start later, for teens, they tend to see better score grades. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to try to align our culture, our activities to that biological clock.
Yeah, I think about that. I think about that research, and even the American Academy of Pediatrics is like, school should not be starting before 8 a.m. Like, this should not be a thing. And in high school, I was in leadership classes. I don't know why. It got me nowhere in life. It was completely, someone tell my 15-year-old self it was dumb, because I was getting up at like 5-something in the morning. And some nights I wasn't going to bed until like close to midnight. And it's, you know how people are always like, what would you say to like your younger self? I'm like, sleep. I would have said sleep because I love it so much. And I missed my opportunity there.
Yeah. Whenever I was a medical student, I did the same. I was up all night to study for an exam that I actually needed sleep. Yeah. Because sleep is going to be better for us than any study that you want, because for cognitive performance, the best you can do is sleep at least 7 or 8 hours a night.
Totally. But this is the thing about medical school, right? In the first 2 years, we're not getting any sleep and we're staying up and we're doing all this studying. And then it's like after those 2 years where they start teaching you about memory consolidation and then you're like, wait a minute. I needed to sleep to actually consolidate my memory,
Right.
to actually like have better cognitive performance. We didn't have creatine research back then. So like, 20 years ago, it wasn't like downing creatine and like doing all of that. But yeah, it's kind of the irony of medical school.
I know.
It's also like when you go through medical school, like the way that they expect you to live is incongruent with what makes you healthy.
I know.
They're like, we're going to set you up for the worst health outcome scenario.
I know.
Just see how you do.
I know. I sometimes feel like medical school is setting you up to learn everything about illness and nothing about health. So and building health actually, because all those pillars of lifestyle will bring out the best of you. So yeah, if you don't build your health on sleep as much as diet or exercise, you are building your health on sand. There's actually a research that I like, that many researchers that compare two groups. The one that both of them with the same diet and exercise, but one of those groups, they limit their sleep time to 5.5 hours of sleep, and then the other one let them sleep 8.5 hours. And by having the same exercise and diet routine, only because of this sleep difference, the group that have sleep deprivation compared to the group that had enough sleep, the ones that sleep good, that had enough sufficient sleep, they burned between 30 and 50% more fat, and they were able to build more muscle just because of sleep hours. So it's really important, and we usually tend to not put enough attention.
Yeah. And I think that's important in the metabolic conversation, because especially as it applies to women, when we have stressors, which can be many things, but lack of sleep can be one of them, we will see our hormones shift towards survival. So we've got the HPA activation you talked about before, and then we're going to consolidate fat, right? I mean, I would argue body, like we should keep muscle, but the body's like, that's expensive, and fat is a great reserve. Like fat is going to give me more than that muscle is ever going to give me if I'm in a famine. So I think it's really important for women to hear that, because sometimes they're like, exactly what you just said. I'm exercising like the same, I'm eating the same, but I'm not building muscle and I'm building fat. What's going on? Examining your sleep. I want to bring it back to the chronotypes because I'm fascinated by this conversation. Let's help people right now. How can they know their chronotype? How can they identify it? Because most of us are living in an artificial like sleep scenario, right? Yeah. That's like imposed on us, and it isn't true to what our nature is. So how can you identify what's your chronotype?
Okay, well, it's pretty intuitive. If you think about yourself in vacation mode for a month or so, think what will be your sleep schedule? What are your tendency to go to sleep at, let's say, 9, 10, 11 p.m.? And what will be your best wake-up time with no alarm? Other than that, we can go online and do the morningness, eveningness questionnaire, which is a questionnaire that will ask those questions are, at what time do you feel more alert or you want to go to sleep? And that will tell you your best sleep schedule and your chronotype. And also you can look at your parents. What are their preferred time for sleep? Because it's pretty genetically driven. And yeah, you were saying something about chronotypes and...
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, because I want to go a little bit deeper here, because what you said just prompted me to ask the question, a lark. So what would be the ideal waking time for a lark, the ideal meeting time? So like actually when would you schedule like your meeting, whether it is like the parent-teacher conference or it is like, your big presentation at work. So I'd like to go through like based on the chronotypes, what's an ideal way to structure your life?
Yeah, I will say for sleep schedule, for morning larks, 9 to 5 sleep time will be okay. They can be on the 5 a.m. club. Not everyone should be in. And I have a ton of patients that want to be at the 5 a.m. club and wake up at 5 and meditate and do a lot of things before their children wake up. And if you're not a morning chronotype, you're gonna just mess with your sleep with your biological clock. So 9 to 5 for morning larks. And I will say 11 to 12 till 7, 8 a.m. for night owls. And then for intermediate, anywhere between 10 and 11 and 6 or 7 a.m. to wake up. And for morning persons, it's okay to have a meeting at mornings, probably 9 a.m. And for night owls, it's better for them to take decisions and do their creativity work at evenings.
Okay. And then the intermediates, do they get more flexibility in terms of like?
Yes, they do. They can do it anywhere in between. They just follow the sun. And then we also have Michael Brio's chronotype idea. He's a sleep expert and he matches with animals, the animal energy. So lions are the morning types. Bears are like intermediate. They follow the sun. And then we have wolves, which are the night owls. And he adds an extra one, which is a dolphin. And the dolphin, it's a light sleeper and they tend to get more insomnia.
The dolphin. So you and I were talking, I think this was last week off camera, and you were like, the dolphin's pretty controversial.
I know.
Why is it controversial?
I'm not sure if it's the way they're wired or it's their habits, their sleep hygiene. So I feel like sometimes I'm a dolphin because I'm aware all night I'm alert. But I feel like it's because our HPA axis is more activated. We are moms. We might skip routines and things like that. And that might exacerbate our dolphin profile.
Yeah. Does your aura ring tell you you're a dolphin?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, mine tells me I'm a dolphin as well. But I actually, people on the internet are like, who is getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep? I like to go to bed at 9 or 10 and I wake up just naturally at 7, usually in my luteal phase. So my later luteal phase, I have to go to bed earlier. I'm just naturally tired earlier, which my youngest is like a night owl. He drives me nuts because I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, we're reading stories. I fall asleep. I end up taking a nap.
He wants another one.
And then I wake back up and he's still awake. And I'm like, what are you doing? So that I noticed that in my late luteal phase, I have to go to bed earlier, but I'll wake up usually like 6:30 and they will still work for me. So my question for you is these chronotypes, you said like it changes with teenagers. So you said it's genetic, but does it change through your life cycle? Yes. Okay, say more about that.
You tend to go more advanced early phase. I mean, you tend to go to bed early as you age. So after menopause, you tend to go at 10 or 9 and you become an early bird. And it's a good idea to switch to change your sleep schedule and so that it matches an early bird. Most of them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, my speculation of why that switches for me in the luteal phase is because of progesterone and GABA. And then I just think I have this GABA in the evening that's just like, we're just super, super calm now. And I think it also is that in some ways, when progesterone is right, the parasympathetic activities I engage in actually have a better effect. Like it actually feels more meaningful in terms of like, oh, I'm actually getting something out of this. Whereas I feel like other times in my cycle, when estrogen is high and testosterone's high, that I'm doing these activities, but I already feel more stress resilient. So it doesn't feel like it's having that same kind of benefit for me.
Yes. And I feel like we need to improve our melatonin secretion, especially in those stages of life, because we tend to think, okay, what should I take? And think supplements, while lifestyle, it's the main, the specific that you need to put your attention on in order to produce more of your own melatonin naturally. And melatonin is a darkness hormone, so it's really sensitive to light, especially blue light. And I feel like most of the people find really hard to stop using their cell phone or their or screens or TV or anything. And we know that we need to stop at least an hour before heading bedtime. And that, and also change the color of light. We said dimming lights, but also red light, or maybe filters, blue light filtering glasses, screen filters in the phone, and curfews for digital, or do a digital detox at least an hour before bed. That's the main recommendation that I would do. And I know that's the most difficult to do.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you need to sleep with your soul right next to you, but you don't. And it's better if you leave it in the bathroom or in another room for it not to be like something that is distracting.
Yeah. We had a podcast guest that her plane got delayed, and she asked me, can we just like do it tonight? And it was, she wanted to start the podcast at like 6 p.m. And as you sit in this room right now, I'm like, no. Like, I will not, my sleep will be awful. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah, we need to treasure our sleep.
Yeah.
That's the best thing we can do for our health. And I feel like if you wake up feeling tired or get tired often early in the evening or so, we need to think about what's going on with our sleep quality and quantity. Because I was seeing yesterday a video on Instagram, a lot of celebrities saying they were sleeping, most of them average said that they were sleeping 6 hours a night, like if it was normal. And I feel like we need to know that below 7, it's gonna have some impact in our health. It's gonna increase our chances of get a chronic disease like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, insulin-resistant obesity, or things like that. So we need to have it in mind.
I think that's so important for you to know, because there's a glorification of getting little sleep. Like, it's interesting to me because I will share about getting good sleep on the internet, and people will say to me, because I talk about how I'm trying to get 9 to 10 hours, like, I have multiple autoimmune diseases. I have endometriosis. Like, I need more restorative time. And people are like, well, you're missing out on so much life. Like, you're not even living your full life. I'm like, actually, I am getting so much done in the day. I am enjoying this full life because I'm not dragging cognitively.
Right.
I'm not exhausted. You don't catch me yawning all the time. And I'm actually functioning my body, and explaining that to people, and people being like, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm just going through the motions instead of actually being present because my brain is so tired. Can we talk about what is happening when you sleep to your brain?
Yes, it's really important because a lot of people don't get that while you sleep, you're actually boosting up your life, your awareness, your cognitive performance. We know when we sleep, our brain shrinks at night. So our
Okay, that sounds scary to people. Explain why it's not bad.
It shrinks a little bit. The neurons tend to be close together, so cerebrospinal fluid just go through neurons and flushes out metabolic waste that is normal waste, beta amyloid, tau protein, and things that accumulate and builds up only for being awake. So without enough sleep, that will accumulate and increase our chances of have brain aging and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson, dementia. So it's really important, right? And also in REM stage, which is our cognitive performance stage, the one that is going to help us with learning and memory and everything. If we don't get enough sleep, our emotional balance is going to get disrupted. And we know that we are more able to solve a problem, 3 times more able to solve a problem, and our reaction times as well. So a lot of time we tend to prevent our children to drive drunk, right?
Yeah.
And we wouldn't let them drive drunk. That's in Mexico have like a chosen
designated driver.
Yes. Designated the designated driver, and we will be very proud if our kid is the designated driver. But how often do we ask them how tired are they, or ourselves when we're at the wheel? It's very important because we know after 17 hours awake, our cognitive performance will drop down, and we will have 50% less reaction time. So the chances of having a car accident increases after 19 hours or so 4 to 5 times, and after 24 hours awake, it will increase by 11 times.
Wow!
So we should pay attention to that, and think that our best tool for cognitive performance is sleep.
In the United States, they do daylight savings and they like to take away sleep from people. I am seriously the mouthiest person on the internet about this because I'm like,
I know.
Stop doing this.
We stopped a couple of years ago here.
Yeah. In Mexico, they stopped. A lot of places they're stopping because they're like, not only is it bad for productivity, so right, the government's like, bottom line, the money, this is a problem,
right?
But it's so bad for your health, and we see the car accidents spike, heart attacks spike, like the first day back to work. Suicide, like so many problems. And I think that this is a non-consensual experiment that is being done, right? Year after year after year, that we've got the data and the evidence that anyone listening, like, revolt, like, just revolt. And it's something that, like, you know, with us, like, we have people in our company that work all over the world. And when the time zones are switching, like, I don't live in places that switch the time zone. And I'm just like, stay what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. And, you know, we work it out because I'm like, there's no reason for you to like go losing an hour of sleep.
I know. And that's why I like to talk also about social jet lag. Because social jet lag can be detrimental to our health because sometimes you might lose an hour every week. So
that is what, let me just say, that's life in Mexico. Like, I have finally got my friend circle to stop making dinner reservations at 9.
I know.
And I'm like, can you move it up to 8? I understood when I made dinner reservations at 6 for everybody, we were all trying to meet, but then we were all stuck in traffic for 90 minutes. I was like, oh, this is why it's later. But it is something, I lived in Spain for a bit and I was like, I cannot permanently live here because this entire start your night at 10 p.m. I can't do it.
I know. The social jet lag is like this misaligning between our biological clock and the social clock. And we tend to go to sleep, let's say, to wake up at 6 a.m. on weekdays, and then to wake up at 9 on weekends. And that difference is like if you're having jet lag, if you're traveling different time zones within the same city every week. So that brings us inflammation that will lead us to a lot of sleep problems. And that's why also it's very difficult for us to go to sleep on Sundays because you know you have to go to sleep again early, and then on Monday you couldn't go to sleep at the same time on Sunday, but you will wake up at the same time on Monday. And that's why everyone's miserable on Mondays because they tend to sleep an hour less.
Well, I think there's also revenge bedtime procrastination that happens where you're just like, my work is about to steal my time, so I'm gonna steal it back and like stay up and like enjoy myself. I know I've caught myself in that. A lot of patients experience that. It's well documented in the research that I always say we're just perpetual toddlers. Like you think that you grow out of being a toddler, but you're really a toddler for life in a lot of ways.
Know, especially moms. Whenever you go, you put your children to sleep, it's like, now it's me time.
Yeah,
you're gonna take advantage of that till 12.
So I want to ask you though. So we know community is so good for your health, right? Like one of the when we look at the blue zones, we're like, it's not so much their diet. Like look at how they live in community. Look at how they move. So with that in mind, there's people who are going to be like, no, but I want to have a girls' night out. I want to be able to spend time with my friends. What do you recommend to safeguard their sleep and kind of like, you know, it's harm reduction, right? There's things that we're going to do that are not the best idea for our health, but it's part of living the full human experience. So how can we reduce the impact?
Yeah, I like to use blue light filtering glasses and put in my car whenever I'm going back from a dinner with friends. I will put them on so I can start my melatonin production and it doesn't take me a while to fall asleep. I will not drink for at least an hour or two before bed.
I think those are good tips. I have to say, there's this trick I have done my entire life, which is I order soda water and a lime, and I'll ask for a salt rim. Mm-hmm. And then in Mexico, it's suero. Everybody is drinking that. I can't be as tricky, but in the U.S., so I would be out. There's sometimes conferences and parties, and people are drinking, and because if you don't drink, everyone's like, "Why are you not drinking?" Like it's such a thing. And so I would order that, and people would think I was drinking a margarita all the time. And I was like, I'm just drinking sparkling water. And then here in Mexico, it's like this normal thing. So I'm like, well, people know what I'm up to here. Like they're well aware. But I think The hydrating is super important. I love that. I love your tip of blue light blocking glasses. Sometimes I will just wear those if I'm out at dinner with people, because I'm one of those people that when I leave the social interaction, I know I have like an hour of wind down when I get home. Like I have a hard time. So I'm like, if I can just wear those blue light blocking glasses,
it's a better idea than screen time. I feel like a lot of people to wind down they think they are helping themselves with the screen or with social media, and that will probably activate you more. It will increase your cortisol levels. So it's not a good idea. I know you feel like you're winding down and you're at least directing your thoughts, but it's not a good idea biologically speaking. That's why reading is a better idea than that, or maybe listening to a podcast.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the research showing that people who read before bed actually have better HPA access, so stress system response, and they have lower cortisol levels. So it's that 2-for-1 right there. And like I said, I fall asleep all the time when I'm reading. It's like my go-to. And the other thing that I do, like if I'm going out at night, is I will actually, so I have an adrenal calm supplement, which has things that are like L-theanine, pro-GABA supplements. So not GABA itself, but things that actually help with your own GABA generation and utilization. And that I will take, like, if it's the end of dinner, dessert is coming, I will take that.
I will take that as well.
Yeah. And so it just starts priming my body, because again, I'm just like, once I end a social interaction, I feel like my default mode network in my brain is like, we have so much to process now. And I'm like, we do. And I just go to sleep.
I know. I sometimes use a sleep aid as a supplement or an herbal as well. I love L-theanine. A lot of people tend to think that melatonin is a good idea. I don't think for this is a good example, because melatonin is a hormone and it tends to interact with other hormones in our systems. And it is actually a chronobiotic. It won't help you stay asleep. It's just going to cue your brain into sleep mode. But L-theanine is going to increase GABA. It's going to act as an anxiolytic. I love to take 200, 400 milligrams of L-theanine. Some adaptogens might help us also with this HPA axis regulation. I love ashwagandha, like reishi, and a mixture of things is a good idea. I like chamomile tea. But yeah, I see what you mean. And I need as well something that cues my brain into this rest mode.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that about melatonin, because I think people go to that first. And it's something that I'm, especially with women who are postpartum, they are in perimenopause, or where they're having luteal phase sleep problems. I'm like, it's a GABA problem. If you can fall asleep, but you don't stay asleep, that's most women's problem. And so it's like, you take melatonin, sure, that's going to get you to sleep, but that won't sustain you through sleep. And so what you were saying, L-theanine, I also like passion flower for that as well. I'm a big passion flower fan.
Holy basil.
Holy basil is a great one too.
And valerian root. I think for GABA, the best idea in perimenopause is progesterone. If it's indicated, I think like nothing is going to beat that. And what I'm afraid most is people using more melatonin gummies for kids.
Oh, yeah.
That has increased a ton. We know that poison control has received over 500% more calls regarding ingestion of melatonin. And there's research from last year, 2024, that said that melatonin gummies, 88% of them are not adequately labeled.
Yeah.
So they tend to have 3 times more than it used to, especially gummies. And some of them even have CBD without saying that clearly on the label. So it's really important to take take caution of that, especially in kids. We know it will interact with their hormones. It might delay puberty, and there's no chronic studies, especially in children, with melatonin. Not especially not with that amount. We know our brain tends to release about 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams of melatonin. And these preparations tend to have between 3 to even 10. So it's 10, 30 times more than our physiological dose. We need to take caution of that.
I appreciate you giving caution around that. So I have a supplement company and we do a lot of manufacturing. Gummies are really hot. Everybody loves gummies except all my dental friends are like, please don't do gummies. So bad for your teeth. And I've considered certain things. So like people were like, oh, how about a prenatal? When you look into it, so two things people need to know. They're incredibly unstable. That means the nutrients that are in there, the second they go in, they're degrading rapidly. So because of that, you have to put more ingredients in there. So if let's say you're using like B12, you're going to put way more B12 in there, which is like fine, right? You pee that one out. We don't worry about that one. But what the label says is what you're trying to catch with the degradation, the actual breakdown of it. So it's the same with melatonin. They're overshooting it because they're like, well, once it sits on the shelf for 2 years, it's going to be at that level. Like that's where it's going to be at. And so one, you're getting oftentimes, you don't know what you're getting when you take a gummy. It's because it's so unstable and the way manufacturing practices are, sometimes it's way more, sometimes, and prenatals, way less folate. No, I'm like, no. We would never, I would never mess with that. So I think that you're right to caution people about melatonin gummies. And I think especially when it comes to children, and it's a common, it's one of those things where like a lot of parents would be like, oh, my kid's going to fly, so I will give them Benadryl. Okay, that's not great, right? And so they were like, okay, doctors now say don't use that. I'm going to switch over to melatonin and a gummy. Of course, the kid's going to love a gummy, but there's actually liquids out there that are standardized, that are third-party tested, that will work well. So if you are someone listening to this that you're like, okay, but what if like it's just like an overnight flight or things like
just
that?
Like it's fine, but we need to go to microdosing of melatonin, especially in kids. I will never go up over 0.5 or maybe 1 milligram. Even for adults, I feel like that's a better idea for the brain to actually speak his language regarding of hormones. And before thinking about this kind of supplements, I think we need to rule out nutrition deficiencies, which are everywhere nowadays, especially iron, for example, for menstruating women. It's very important to rule out iron deficiency, ferritin, low levels of ferritin, because that's associated with restless leg syndrome. So it's pretty simple to level back, and it's really impactful on sleep. Also, V vitamins, really important. D3, vitamin D, important to check out. And hormone levels. I feel like we need to check hormone levels, thyroid, progesterone, and check that will actually impact sleep.
Yeah. So we have talked about chronotypes, sleep hygiene, nutrient deficiencies, hormones. If someone's having trouble sleeping and they're like, okay, listen, I'm doing all the sleep hygiene, it's still not working, what other things should they investigate?
I think they, besides hormone, they need to check glucose balance. It's really important to check A1C, hemoglobin, A1C, insulin, basal insulin, fasting insulin, to check if they're on the right levels. And they can jump into supplements. I feel like it's a better idea to start with supplements and sleep hygiene before heading to sleep medication. So you can start magnesium. Most of the people, 50% of the people, are depleted in magnesium, or at least are not sufficient. Magnesium is a mineral implicated in a ton of functions for the body and for cell health. And the thing with magnesium is you need to find the right kind of it. At least in Mexico, it's not that easy. We know that most of the forms of magnesium won't get absorbed. So glycinate, threonate, which is difficult to have. But glycinate is a good idea. Citrate, if you're having some constipation problems, might help too.
Yeah, I think that's important to know that not all magnesiums are created equal. And then I'm wondering, like, at what point with your patients do you consider like doing a sleep study, investigating sleep apnea?
Yeah, if you've done everything related to sleep hygiene, which we have talked, but environmentally speaking, your sleep environment is good. You did your wind down routine. You stop eating 2 or 3 hours before bed. You're exercising at morning, and you're taking care of light and everything, and you're still waking up more than 3 times a week for more than 3 months. You probably have insomnia, and it's a good idea to check with a nighttime polysomnography if you're having any other problem, because sometimes it might be obstructive sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, which in a nighttime polysomnography might come out.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the specific sleep phases because you've
Yeah.
mentioned REM sleep, but we didn't talk about, slow wave. And I think these terms get thrown around a lot. So if you could just break that down for us, and like, what is ideal?
Right. So we don't have like a passive state. We have different states on our sleep architecture. And we have two main stages, non-REM sleep and REM sleep. In non-REM sleep, which is the part of our body, of our sleep that will help tissue repair, hormone balance, and everything, it's divided itself in three. And one, which is like a light stage of sleep, is the transitional stage, actually, and you will easily be waking up. Then we go into N2, which is light sleep, and most of our cycles, most of our nights, we tend to go into N2 sleep. And this is where our heart rate, breathing, blood pressure will start to drop. And here we're going to have sleep spindles, K complexes, which are important for memory processing, and also they will help us. They will prevent us to wake up from external stimuli. Then we have N3. N3 in non-REM, it's where our deep sleep is gonna be, and we're gonna have delta waves, and here is where our growth hormone will spike. And it's really important for kids to grow, but for adults for muscle repair,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have our hormones reset. We're gonna have our immune system also reset, and it's like housekeeping for our brain, especially, and cognitive performance. This is gonna represent around 15 to 20% of our night, and it tends to be more at the beginning, at the first part of the night. Then we're having REM sleep. REM sleep is our rapid eye movement. We're going to be paralyzed in the body, except for the diaphragm and eye muscles. We tend to have our dreams here. 80% of our most vivid dreams is going to happen here. We're going to have emotional balance. We're going to keep our memories, and learning. It's really important. It's often called paradoxical sleep because our brain is as active as if we are awake, almost. And yeah, it's really important. We tend to have 15 to 20 minutes at the beginning of the night, and it gradually increases throughout the night. So by the last part of our night, we're having more REM sleep. That's why we remember most of our dreams if we wake up in REM.
Mm-hmm. And why is REM sleep so important? Because you're like, the brain is really active. And I think people often think like, no, but sleep is when our brain is supposed to like power down and it's supposed to get cleaned out. But why is REM sleep so important for us?
Especially for cognitive performance, for learning, for memory, for attention, for emotional well-being. It's like, some say that it's like therapy for us because we tend to edit our.
I love that. You're going to therapy every night.
I know. It's like, that's why they say sleep on it, because you tend to go to sleep and reframe things and see things in other perspective.
I actually never knew why they said sleep on it. I thought they was like, just take some space from it. But like, that makes sense. So there are women listening to this right now, and they're like, yes, everyone and their mother and their brother on the internet is like, women need to gain muscle, build muscle, do this like strength training, but sleep is so important for that. So how can women get into that phase of sleep to help them build their muscle?
Okay, I always say that we have three things. We need three things to build muscle. First, we need enough protein. I know we need protein from our diet, clean protein enough, and then we need to do some weights. We need to challenge our muscles for it in order for it to build up, and then we need to sleep, and we need enough N3 phase. So if that's the first part of your night, the best thing you can do is go to sleep early for your chronotype. But when you tend to go later to sleep, you cap that specific phase when you're building up your muscle.
Okay. And to review the chronotypes to make sure I got this right. So if you are the morning person, 9 to 10 is when you need to get to bed.
Yeah.
If you are the intermediate, you're following more the sun. So it
10
may
to 11.
Okay. And then if you're the night owl, that might be more like 11 to 12.
Yeah, I wouldn't go over 12 because we are diurnal animals, and our circadian rhythm will dictate that we need to sleep before 12 in order to have enough melatonin. That's the best time to have high melatonin in our brains. And yeah, so before midnight.
Before midnight.
Yeah.
Well, I like that anyways, because it's like you want to get to bed before the next day.
Exactly.
Like you should be sleeping hopefully at the end of that.
Yeah, and I would put attention on waking up at the same time every time, because regularity is key to sleep, and it's key to sleep hygiene. That will help us set our circadian clock and keep it in place.
Mm-hmm. So you really highlighted the short-term consequences of not sleeping. So less reaction time, more car accidents, mood swings. Yes, I think about that with like, if you have teenagers right now, check their sleep if their moods are swinging.
Yes.
But we know, I mean, as women, if we don't get I think we've all been postpartum in that phase and recognized ourselves in that. Like for the moms, we all have been, and then for others, there's always been that like one night you stayed up too late and you feel that you're more emotionally vulnerable. And I think in a lot of ways, we sometimes pathologize that, right? And we're like, you're just being too sensitive. But if you consider that your brain is running at a lower capacity, it is more vulnerable, right? Your reaction time is reduced.
Actually, your amygdala, is it called like that?
Yeah.
Amygdala? Yeah. So your amygdala amplifies everything. It said that 60% of the activity of the amygdala is going to be amplified once you're not getting enough sleep. So you're going to take everything personal. You're going to see everything through a gray, like a gray lens or so. So it's really important to not take that serious things after a bad night of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You're less capable of solving a problem. You're not a good team member, when you don't have your best sleep.
Yeah. And so that was going to be my question is like, what is the long-term impact here of, so we're not talking about like, 3 months of a newborn baby not getting good sleep, but what happens when it is just month after month and there's no end to it?
The thing is, when we don't get enough sleep, we tend to activate our alert mode. And for a couple of weeks, it is okay. It is actually helpful to turn on our alert mode, our fight or flight system. But if you keep doing it, it will start to burn out our systems, our organs. So for the heart, for example, you tend to keep your blood pressure up. You won't have that dip that we need at night. So it will increase your chances of having high blood pressure. For your liver, it is okay to release more glucose for a couple of weeks if you need it, if you haven't slept well. But as in long term, you're going to be more prone to have insulin resistance, to have diabetes or diabetes, as well as cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson, dementia, obesity, dyslipidemia, I mean, every chronic disease
You're
is
like,
gonna.
if you don't want it, that's what you're going to get, right?
Yes.
And for people listening to dyslipidemia, that's cholesterol levels that are unfavorable and not compatible with like live long and prosper mantra there.
Right.
I just think that's important for people to hear because it's not often that people are choosing not. So, okay, two things. People don't often choose not to get good sleep. There are two things that happen. One is physiologically, something is going on that's disrupting it, or socially, there's this pressure of you like sleep when you're dead, hustle culture, go, go, go.
Yeah,
And
these misconceptions are,
yeah. And I think it's something that like, I think this is the most unfair thing of being a human is all the decisions we make in our 20s have the impact for our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, right? So we think about like bone consolidation and building your muscle mass, like that gets talked about a lot. But brain health and cognitive outcomes and the way that we slept or didn't sleep in those decades of life can have a major impact. So with all that said, and it sounds really scary, what can people do right now? So we've talked about the sleep stuff, but if they're like, I want to prevent that, I want to keep my brain healthy, what can they be doing right now, right? Because we're plastic. We are always able to undo what we did in our youth to a degree.
I know. The best time to set our sleep habits is now, whenever you're listening to this, because we can always improve. It's like a sport that you just sign in. You need to train for it, and you need to perfection it. And there's many things we can do. Sleep hygiene will be the first things. Sleep regularity is very important, to set your schedule, to leave lights off, to actually to do your morning routine, because sometimes sleep starts with morning routines. So wake up and expose yourself to light, natural light, external, preferably. The first hour or so, it's a good idea. That's why if you exercise at morning, you just hit, in Spanish, we will say to hit two birds at once. I don't know if that exists.
Yeah, two birds with one stone.
Okay, yeah. That one. So, we'll do exercise and you expose yourself to light at morning. It will set your circadian clock and stop stimulants. Caffeine is really important. It's the most consumed stimulant globally. So 80% of the people or so consume it. And the thing with caffeine is most people tend to use it too late.
Okay, so that's my question. Are you a caffeine hater or is it just a too late problem? I do love my coffee.
I need to confess that I am not a coffee person. I'm a slow metabolizer. Actually, I did my genetic testing and I know I'm a slow metabolizer from years and from my sibling as well, because we know that if we drink coffee, I will get anxiety and palpitations. And so I like the taste of it, but I don't consume it. The thing is, if we use it too late, it will affect our sleep quality. Even if it doesn't prevent you to fall asleep, and you could fall asleep, the first hours are going to be driven by that small amount of caffeine. It might alter sleep architecture and the deepness of sleep.
So wait, that makes me connect that if we are consuming caffeine too late in the day, which is for a lot of people after 12 p.m., but we know definitely 3 p.m. is like bad news.
A lot of people take their coffee after lunch, which in Mexico it's at 3 p.m. So they tend to have their last coffee at 3 or 4, and I think it is too late for your sleep.
Absolutely, but you just said it's going to negatively impact deep sleep, which is the exact sleep we were talking about for repairing your muscles, so building muscle, for helping your brain do its detoxification, like all of these benefits of deep sleep. I'm like, I just realized that I want to underscore for everybody, your coffee too late in the day may prevent you from building your muscle mass.
Yes, because also we've talked a lot about circadian rhythm, which is like part of the two processes that regulate sleep. We have two processes, process C, which is circadian clock and circadian rhythm, and we know it's genetically determined and we need light and everything that we've talked about. But we have process S, which is like the homeostatic drive, the homeostatic system, and it's ruled by adenosine, which is like a product of ATP degradation. And caffeine, then when we wake up, we start going through our day, and adenosine accumulates. So it will help us feel sleepy. And when we go to sleep, that adenosine is going to be washed out, and we're going to reset that. Caffeine, it is actually an antagonist of this adenosine. It will sit on the same receptors of the adenosine. So its half-life is going to be between 6 to 8 hours or so. And that means that if you take a cup of coffee at 4 p.m., by 10 p.m., you might have half of that caffeine, which is like 50 milligrams or so. And that could be enough to pull you out of that or prevent that you go into that deep sleep that we need to feel repaired, at least physically.
That adenosine sleep pressure, so that's what it's called, it gets built up. But there's a big problem when we miss the window of when adenosine builds up and it's like, go to bed. Talk to us about what happens when you ignore that signal.
Yeah, the thing is, if you ignore that signal or you took coffee, actually, it won't make you feel energized. The only thing is that you won't feel that tiredness. So when that caffeine washes out, your adenosine is going to come back like a tsunami, helping you feel tired, and you're going to crash. And it's not the best way to fall asleep in that state. It's better to transition softly. So you need to have your process C and your process S coordinated. And as long as they fall into the same path, you're going to have the best sleep quality that you can. So you need to pair your chronotype with your adenosine, with your sleep drive, and find your best time to fall asleep.
So, the other thing I think that if you have toddlers, you've seen the second wind come on, right? They're tired. Some of us have mistakenly been like, maybe if they skip their nap, they'll get better sleep. It doesn't happen that way.
No.
Explain why that second wind, like what is happening with the second wind, and why is it so hard for people to get to sleep?
Right. I love to say with kids that sleep begets sleep, because once you miss that sleep window, cortisol is going to spike, and it's going to kick in just to help them feel like they can go through that time that they're awake and they're not supposed to. So if you miss that window with them or with you, which is actually about around, for adults, 12 to 16 hours. If you pass that time, you will probably activate your alarm system, which is going to kick in with cortisol. You're going to release more glucose. That will make you feel alert, so you can go through that couple of hours or so. But if you go to sleep actually at that time, your sleep is going to be driven by cortisol, which is going to make your sleep more superficial, and you're going to have more fragmented sleep. You're going to wake up and it might be difficult to fall back asleep and to pair that cycles that we need in order to have good sleep quality and the whole 8 hours with good hygiene, for example.
And how long does it take to recover? Like if you have a bad night of sleep, how long is it taking the body to recover from that?
I feel like everyone's different, and it might take a couple of days. But if you add alcohol, you add substances and things like that, it's gonna be difficult for your liver to flush out everything. Some might say that for every hour that you lose sleep or you go late to sleep, it might take a couple of days, 2 days, to recover from that hour of sleep. So do the math. If you go to sleep 3 hours late, you need 6 days to repair for that. But I think that everyone's different, and you need to build that sleep resiliency or sleep fitness in order to be capable to have a late sleep night every once in a while.
There has been research saying that once you lose sleep, you can't get it back. And also that you can't bank sleep. So you can't be like, oh, I'm not going to, I know I have this bad flight scheduled and it's just the way it is. So I'm going to sleep 10 hours tonight and I'll sleep 6 hours tomorrow.
Yeah, I feel like we don't have a bank account of sleep, but you do have resiliency. Your heart rate variability, for example, can tell you how resilient you are to these late nights. And And yes, you will have cell damage and inflammation for not going to sleep at the time you need to. But I feel like that is done, that damage is done regarding cells. But regarding HPA axis and autonomous SNA, ANS, I'm sorry. What's
Autonomic nervous system.
Autonomic nervous system. You can build that resiliency, especially if you know how to hack your vagus nerve and to activate it more often. I think that will help a little bit with sleep deprivation.
Now everybody wants to know, how can you hack your vagus nerve?
I know. Vagus nerve, we know we can sort of train our vagus nerve into being activated more often. We used to think that it was completely like autonomous, independent, but we can actually drive it towards activating more often. So we can gargle, for example, because the vagus nerve will go through our throats, and we can gargle, we can sing, we can say mantras, for example, for activating it. And we can, at mornings, we can use cold water in our face. We can, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do the whole cold plunge at mornings because I hate it. But we can do our face. What else we can do? A massage every once in a while. I love gargles because you just brush your teeth and gargle for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or so. Earthing, walk barefoot for 10 or 15 minutes every day. We know it's more important for earthing to do it, consistently than a ton of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So consistency beats like the amount of time that you're doing.
That's what I meant.
I was going to ask you, so can one bad night of sleep kind of throw your hormones off for days? You've talked a bit about the HPA axis, but I think for women listening, they would like to know, like, how does this affect my ovarian hormones and maybe even thyroid as well? Because we know that can be connected.
Yes, I know thyroid can be affected because we need to convert T4, which is the inactive form, to T3. And when we're stressed, which means that you didn't sleep, for example, when we're stressed, we're going to alter that conversion from T4 to T3, and we might feel a lot of symptoms. I don't know if it will be for one night, but chronically, it definitely will alter thyroid hormones. It might alter all hormones by one night, but we have some hormone resiliency. But chronically, you're going to deplete our sex hormones because cortisol is going to steal everything. The same, how would you say that? Like in Spanish, is materia prima, like
the precursor, the metabolite.
Yeah, not precursor, but the material that you use to build hormones, cortisol, which is cholesterol, is going to drive everything to do cortisol. Because if you're telling your system that you need to be in fight or flight, that's a priority. And cortisol, it's above sex hormones, really, talking about priorities and survival. So if you favor cortisol, that will deplete estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and also the HEA. Right?
Yeah.
So we can check cortisol at AM or do a curve, salivary cortisol curve, to check how is that still going on, and if cortisol is stealing everything from this material that we need to build sex hormone.
Yeah. And earlier in this conversation, you also pointed out insulin as well. So I want to remind people of that you talked about cortisol, we talked about insulin, sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone. Certainly testosterone can be affected. You said DHEA, which is coming from the adrenal gland. So the takeaway is no hormone is untouched by poor sleep. So I want to ask you, some people have said that poor sleep is silently aging the brain as fast as smoking is. Why would people say that? Do you believe there's truth to that?
I think it's truth. Oxidative stress that accumulates after a night of being awake, it could damage our cells. It will liberate more radicals.
Oh, free radicals.
Free radicals, yes. Thank you. So we will have more free radicals attaching to our tissues and aging them. Also, we know that over 700 genes are being or not being activated at nights. And those are genes that tend to increase inflammation, chronic disease, oxidative stress. So also for longevity, it's not only brain aging and tissue aging, but for longevity, it's really important to keep those 7 to 9 hours of good sleep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been fantastic. You've given us so many practical tools. So I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and having the uncomfortable conversation people don't want to hear is that you need to go to bed.
I know. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, having me here. I love to share this information.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. If you could like, subscribe, or leave a review, it helps me so much in getting this information out to everyone who needs it. If you enjoyed this conversation, then I definitely want you to check out this.